Hey everyone, welcome to Disciples of the Faith podcast, where we interview everyday men and women who have devoted their lives to being a disciple of Jesus Christ. We wanted to document their stories to encourage fellow believers that God is faithfully working through His disciples in their everyday life. We hope and pray this podcast will both encourage and challenge you in your daily walk with the Lord. Now let's get started. Well, Ruffin Snow, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, Ruffin has been a disciple of Jesus Christ for the past 72 years, and he has been a lead pastor on staff at multiple churches across America and has helped develop multiple prayer ministries and bus ministries over the years. He helped start a radio show called Let Me Talk to That Preacher. And then he has been a board trustee for Southern Seminary and the International Mission Board. He has been married to his wonderful wife, Melissa, for the past 59 years. And has 3 children and 11 grandchildren. Before we dive into the main interview, I do like to ask everybody a kickoff question. What's the favorite place you've ever traveled to and why?
Oh my. Favorite place is probably Israel. I love Israel.
Yeah, what'd you love about it?
I've been there. Melissa and I have been to Israel, I think, 8 times, and we've taken groups and so forth. It's just, there's something so marvelous about just kind of being there, where Jesus walked and things like that. My favorite place there in Israel is probably the Garden Tomb, although it's not rock solid. Sure enough, that's the right tomb, but if it's not that one, it's close by.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's just I never dreamed I'd even get to go to Israel, but thankful that, like I say, we've been there several times.
That's really cool. I hope I get to go someday.
I hope you do too.
I think it'd be awesome. I have to die down first.
Yeah, I wouldn't go this way.
I wouldn't go right now.
Now's not the time.
No. Well, let's start off with a little bit of your family history. What was it like growing up at your house when you were a kid?
Okay. Well, there's definitely a divide.
Okay.
BC, before Christ, and then after Christ.
Okay.
When I was a little boy, I didn't even know who Jesus was. And Tyler, my dad was a World War II veteran, and he was in the Navy. He was older, after Pearl Harbor. Thousands of young men volunteered, and others were drafted. But and he volunteered, but he was not real young. He was, I think, 29 or 30, and whereas most of them are 18, 19. And he knew how to build things, and so he joined the CBs of the Navy, CB Construction Battalion. And, some of Mom kept a lot of letters. They got married in 1941, and then they were obviously separated by the war. And but some of those letters just make you sad, you know what I mean? Because he was a worldly person and a heavy drinker. I mean, he doesn't mind me saying this. And so the first part of my life, I was born in 1945, and we didn't go to church at all. I mean, maybe we did once in a blue moon that I just don't have a memory of, but we weren't church-going folk. And in fact, my grandmother had a picture on the wall, that picture of Jesus when he was 12. And, his parents, it's in the second chapter of Luke, his parents took him to the temple, and all the old guys there were amazed. He was so wise and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, this was some artist's conception of that. I said to my mom's mom, I said, "Who is that picture on the wall?" And I don't know if that made her mad or what, but she said, "Well, it's Jesus, Ruffin." And, so I didn't ask any more questions.
Yeah.
And I say this reverently. In my own mind, I thought it's that it was a girl, because he didn't have a beard in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
Had long hair, looked like he was wearing a dress to me, and so that's just how totally ignorant of the Bible and so forth that we were.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because my mom wasn't a Christian. It was just because that she was married to a heavy drinking lost guy. And okay, so, but we moved. I don't know if you want to hear all this, but
Yeah, please do. We
mo-
want to hear it all.
We lived all different places. McAllister, Bartles. In fact, my earliest memory that I can put my finger on
Mm-hmm.
is when one time when Mom had me in the car and we went out to a bear joint out from Bartlesville. And while we were waiting on Dad to come out, why a fight broke out out there in the parking lot, and these guys were breaking bottles and slashing one another, and I kept getting them, and Mom kept pulling me back. That's my earliest memory in life, and I've seen pictures of things before that, but as far as me having a memory, that was the world that we were in, and
Man.
so we moved to Wichita, Kansas, and I was in the first grade when we moved there. I went to kindergarten at Bartlesville, and then we moved up there. And so, my dad was a tough guy,
Mm-hmm.
and another tough guy, Mr. Nichols, came and knocked. We lived in public housing,
Mm-hmm.
and knocked on our door and came in and talked to Dad about salvation. We were all in. It was a very tiny little place,
Yeah.
and so my brother was just a baby, and but I was big-eyed and everything, and my Mr. Nichols, Carl Nichols is his name, and I will sure be thanking him when I get to heaven. As he was leaving, he said, "Well, Ed, that's my dad's name. Looks like you're just bound and determined to go to hell. And the bad thing is, you're probably going to take this family with you." Well, that wasn't exactly it wasn't a pleasant visit, and Dad didn't get saved then, but he did start taking us to a little church, Sharon Baptist Church, and I well remember. I totally remember the night that he went forward, and we laugh about this now, but the pastor rang Morgan. He said, "Well, Ed, what is your confession?" Well, he was wanting Dad to confess Christ as his Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
Dad thought he was supposed to confess all his sins.
Oh, man.
And so, for several minutes there, he sort of turned the air blue. I mean, he was being honest,
Yeah.
and about how he had been mean to mom, and of course the drinking and everything, um, and like I say, it's humorous to us now. But one thing it did show that he wasn't playing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he was serious, and he quit drinking. And he never drank, as far as I know. I don't, and I'm pretty sure I'm right that he never had another bit of alcohol after that night.
Wow.
Um, and this was a man, by his own confession, um, that woke up in the morning needing a drink. And
Wow.
anyway, so we went from never going to church to never missing church. I mean, we were there all the time.
That's so
And
cool.
and I personally, I just loved church. Those people were so kind,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, I just loved it. And so it wasn't too long after that that I wanted to know how to be saved. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I mean, this sounds strange to some people, but it was a week before my 7th birthday. And I think really, probably, I got saved sitting out in Dad's pickup, waiting on him that Sunday afternoon. But that Sunday night, I went forward, and um, and I meant business, and the Lord meant business, and and so 2 weeks later, we went to Emmanuel Baptistry. We didn't have a baptistry,
Mm-hmm.
and at that church. So anyway, I got baptized there. So I think I got that's that. But that was, I've talked about life before
Yeah.
Jesus in our family. Life afterwards, there's no comparison. In fact, I remember asking Mom, why doesn't everybody get saved? And I meant it. I mean, I just couldn't. It was such a change.
That's so cool. What okay, so like growing up as a kid, did you play any sports or did anyone like what were your hobbies as a
Yeah,
kid?
okay. I went out for everything.
Yeah.
I was no good at any of them.
Okay.
But so I was, when I got into junior high, I got in the band, and I played, you know what a sousaphone is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or a bass horn, whatever you want to call it, tuba. It's not really a tuba. A sousaphone is the marching version of a tuba.
Okay.
And
Didn't know that.
yeah, well, it's very educational.
Yeah. That's what we're here for.
And really, the main reason was that if you played the baritone of the tuba, you didn't have to buy an instrument.
Okay. Nice.
And so I played, and I played that all the way through high school and then into college as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then in high school, I'd taken piano lessons and stuff, but I was not a pianist. But I got to be in the choir and things like that, and various musicals that they did.
Okay, that's cool. How do you think the way your parents raised you grew you into the person you became? What
No question about that. I mean, I think all four of us bought into Christianity, Jesus, church, pretty much 100%. And
so there were 4 siblings?
no, just one.
Okay.
My brother and me, and but Mom and Dad,
Yeah.
the four of us. Dad could never be a deacon because he had been married and divorced before he met Mom and all. But he always came up for a deacon because, people, it's an at-large nomination, and every time he would be nominated, and I believe I'm not exaggerating, that it was just about every time until he got really old. And because he, just as bad of a life as he had before, he had a marvelous life after that. In fact, even his ability to make a living,
Yeah. What'd he do for work?
he finished his degree after the war on the GI Bill at OSU, except it was Oklahoma A&M then. And in fact, he played football before the war, and they had those leather helmets. And he said after a September game, you can just wring those things out like a wash rag. They were so sweaty.
I'm sure.
And he broke his nose. He was a lineman. He broke his nose a number of times, and he claimed that he could reset it himself and get back in the game. And I don't know if that was exaggerating or not, but
Yeah.
he was double tough though, and so yeah, life just was so much better after Christ came into our family, and like I say, Dad had the respect of just everybody, frankly, and he became a construction superintendent for Manhattan Construction Company.
Okay.
He was on the front cover of Construction Engineering magazine for his work on Thanksgiving Square in Dallas, and also the convention center down there.
Okay. Fun fact, I actually worked for Manhattan Construction for a year.
Sure enough.
Yeah, during school.
Me too.
That's funny. Small world.
I had to join the International Brotherhood of Construction Laborers and Hod Carriers.
Okay.
Because it's a closed shop, and so I had to join the union. I was the youngest guy in the union hall, and but that was when I was going through college.
So your mom and dad growing up, did they have any habits like after he got saved that they did with you guys, whether it's like reading the Bible every night or praying, or what were some routines y'all had as a family?
Good question. Great question. It seems to me like it was every night. I'm sure we missed some nights or something.
Yeah.
But and Dad would read the Bible to us. And even, he's a smart man, but he struggled with King James English a little bit.
I do too.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would always have family devotions, basically.
Okay.
And then, of course, Christmas time, we would always have some kind of a little family program, that about Jesus' birth and everything.
Okay. And then, so growing up, you said you guys were always at church every time it was basically open. So getting saved at basically 6 years old, almost 7, how did God kind of grow you through church?
Good question.
As you were a kid.
Yeah. Well, back then we had something called Royal Ambassadors. You ever hear of that? I don't think it exists anymore, but it was sort of like Christian Boy Scouts,
Okay.
I mean, the same kind of camping skills and all that kind of thing. And so both my brother and I were in that, and then also we went to training union on Sunday evenings, and and they had a Bible drill kind of deal that you'd be in.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I came to Oklahoma City for, as you advanced through that, why, I want to say it's not important, but one of the churches that I can't think of right now, we came to that for the finals of the Bible drill,
Mm-hmm.
and I never did great on that, but that was a part of things, And then when you got to be in high school, they had the Better Speakers Tournament, it was called. And you got to choose from a bunch of different, I say 5 or 6 different topics. And of all things, it's amazing. When we lived in Fort Smith when this was going on. And, but I won the state tournament. And
That's cool.
And so I got to go to Glorieta out in New Mexico and do my speech out there, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And really strangely enough, I don't expect you to know this name, but and I can't think of it right now. But I roomed with a guy out there who won the tournament in Mississippi, and he became a great theologian, taught at Southern Seminary and so forth. But we were roommates out there in
That's cool.
in Glorieta, and I don't know if you want to, but I'll just tell it. My subject was witnessing the divine imperative. That's what the speech was about. Nobody told me to do this,
Mm-hmm.
but I got under conviction I guess I was 17 at that moment. And I said, if I'm going to talk about witnessing, I guess I better do it. And so I made a promise to the Lord. Oh, the bus trip out there,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't on a church bus. It was a ticket to ride the Greyhound bus
Oh, wow.
out there. So, I mean, some of those, and the trip took, I want to say 28 hours from Fort Smith to New Mexico, because you stopped at every little
Mm-hmm.
puddle. And, yeah, I dream about some of those places. But I made a promise that anybody that sat next to me, I would at least try to share the gospel with them.
Mm-hmm.
And which I did that commitment. And I didn't actually get to see somebody get saved there, but I think it was an important step along the way, really.
Yeah. When did you feel like you had a call to ministry?
Boy,
Was it early
great
on?
question. No.
Okay.
Everybody else knew I was called to the ministry before I did.
Really?
I say that's an exaggeration, but other people thought I was supposed to be a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and back then, you would have youth Sunday, and one of the youths, you'd have young people teaching all the Sunday school classes, and I remember one of those Sundays, I was a Sunday school teacher teaching on Hosea, and Gomer and everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and to an old men's class, and that was quite a misfit. But but after a while, several years there, well, I was the preacher for youth Sunday. Well, then people really get in their head that that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started having invitations to go and preach a little church over here or someplace. And I didn't even know for sure I was supposed to be a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way it kind of rolled out, you know.
Yeah.
But so really, it wasn't until college days that I said for sure that I knew that God wanted me to be in the ministry.
Okay. Where'd you go to college at?
The original OBU,
What was it called back then?
well, it wasn't Oklahoma Baptist.
Yeah.
It was Ouachita. That starts with an O.
Okay.
Ouachita Baptist University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. That's where I went to college.
Cool.
It's the OBU of Arkansas.
Okay, that makes sense. And who were you involved like with ministry on campus at all there?
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Well, I was already. I'd been that summer between high school graduation and college. They asked me to be the pastor at the Moffat Church. I don't think I sent this to you.
Mm-mm.
You can decide if you want to cut this out.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so every Sunday, every Saturday, I'd go visit Moffat. You know where Moffat is?
Mm-mm.
Well, it's right across the river from Fort Smith.
Okay.
And so that little church, it was hard to find anybody that wanted to go be the preacher. Moffat, Oklahoma is, I'm sure this is still true, is the only municipality in America totally off limits to the military. And the reason is that Fort Chaffee is basically just across the river, the other side of Fort Smith, and Moffat was nothing but beer joints and brothels and things like that. I mean, as far as any kind of, there might have been a gas station there, and so the GIs would come over there and they'd get drunk or they'd get killed or I mean, a lot of bad stuff happened. And so here I was. I hadn't had my 18th birthday yet, and I was the pastor of that church.
Wow.
I asked our pastor later on, did he feel bad that he had sent me over there? No, he didn't feel bad about it at all. But, there's a certain little church kind of thing that, and I could tell stories about that, but I won't. That, it's kind of important in your upbringing as a preacher or a pastor. And so when time came to go be a freshman in college, every weekend I would drive back. I had a 55 Chevy by that time. My first car was a 53 Studebaker.
Okay.
I just wish you could see it.
Yeah.
But I got to where I could buy a really pretty nice 55 Chevy. This was 1963. And so every weekend I would drive back and preach at Moffat. We went to having a Saturday night service and a Sunday morning service, and God was blessing. I was privileged to baptize. Well, I remember one time when we went over to Grand Avenue in Tulsa and Fort Smith, and we baptized 5 people from that church.
That's awesome.
But I mean, it was just God's doing. I mean, just happened to be there.
Yeah.
And okay, so I made that trip every week.
Mm-hmm.
It's only about 200 miles, but this was before the interstates and things, and so it was not a short trip.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you do that, people find out you make that trip. And so folks that live along the way, they catch a ride with you. And maybe they help you with gas or something, or maybe they don't. But I was glad to have company. And so this was kind of important. I mean, not kind of, very important. So a young lady that had ridden with me before, and I mean, I could tell you her name, but I don't want to, I think I won't. Anyway, she was just the opposite. You know, here I was, a little old 18-year-old preacher,
Mm-hmm.
and she was homecoming royalty and things like that. You know, beta sweetheart and things of that nature. And she had ridden with me once before, and you know, back in that day, if you didn't get in by, if the girls especially didn't get in their dorm by a certain time, they got campused, which meant they couldn't get off the campus for a week. And
Okay.
So I'm going to tell this quickly.
No, go for it. Take your time.
So anyway, I picked her up on Sunday night. We met there in the parking lot of the church, and we took off towards Washita, between Mount Ida and Y City and Mount Ida. Why, I said to her, I'm really glad you got late permission because we're not going to get in on time. And she said, well, I didn't get late permission. And because the time before we were late and she got campused.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did something that was very, very foolish and had the worst consequences of, I guess, probably anything I've ever done. And that is I started driving faster, which is ridiculous because I couldn't possibly make it.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like about a minute or maybe two afterwards with that conversation, why it started raining a little bit. The width of the highway went from 24 feet to 19 feet. And anyway, I was driving too fast, slipped off a little bit on the right-hand side, overcorrected, and the car went over and over and over like that. And when it came to stop, I couldn't find her. And to make a long story short, she had been thrown from the car. And, she was still alive. That piece of highway, there's not any traffic at all, hardly.
Yeah.
But a trucker stopped, and he had a way of, back in that was 1963, and he got word back, and they sent an ambulance from Waldron, and but she died that night.
Oh man.
And I had called her parents. I didn't get a scratch.
Wow.
And I had called her parents and told them about the wreck. But so anyway, it was just terrible.
Yeah.
And my parents insisted I go back to school, and I'm glad they did. I mean, that was the wise thing to do. And so I who had been kind of a funny guy, and now walk around campus with my hands in my pocket, and my head down, because it's a small school, like OBU.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we had dorm moms, and I was in O.C. Bailey dorm, and one day the dorm mom stopped me and she said, "Ruffin, what is the matter with you?" said, well, I kind of explained. I mean, she knew all about the wreck, but she said, well, if you ask God to forgive you, and I just told a lie. I said, yeah. And she said, do you not believe God that he forgives? Anyway, I went up to my room, lived on the 3rd floor, and got by my bed there and prayed and asked the Lord to forgive me. And I felt much better for about 2 days. And then once again, I just was, I was just in a terrible situation. And about then I got a letter from Mrs. Wickstrom, who had been my Sunday school teacher when I was maybe 10 or 11, or maybe a little older than that. And she, in that letter, talked to me about believing God about forgiveness. And she also told about how that something I'd never known about this lady. She was kind of Miss Everything as far as young people. In fact, she had a thing called Young People Away. After high school, people would go off to college, go to the military, whatever. And when she would keep track of everybody.
Okay.
And she told about walking out of her front door just in time to see a car hop the curb and run over their little son and took his life. And she talked about the guilt of letting him play out in the front yard. He was like 3 or 2 or something. And she talked about how the enemy, if he can't, how that he loves for us to feel guilty about things and I am guilty. I don't just feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
But she was a big part of me even surviving,
Mm-hmm.
And I thank the Lord, and I'm looking forward to telling her thanks again when I get to heaven.
Yeah.
Anyway, that happened.
Okay.
And I was back in school, and I decided the only way that I could make up for what I'd done was to be a medical missionary. And so I changed my major to pre-med and so forth. And that was kind of a disaster too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Funny enough, that's exactly what Ralph thought he was going to do.
yes, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
that's so interesting. Both of you guys thought the same thing.
That's in my little mind, I thought that was the ultimate thing to do.
Yeah.
And but in fact, I could go into a lot about that too. But
Please do.
but I wasn't cut out for that kind of deal. But I thankfully did get out of college. Just and that's not the end of the talking about that wreck. I don't go around making a big deal out of talking about it all the time. Mm-hmm. But I have found that the Lord has opened the door, not just a few times, a lot of times, for me to help folks that are struggling with guilt. Mm-hmm. And for him to help folks, just like through Mrs. Wickstrom, he helped me.
Yeah.
And so forth. Anyhow, I kept getting opportunities to preach, and ultimately sensed that God was calling me to the ministry.
What were some passages of scriptures that helped get you over, like, the guilt and stuff? that you really clung to?
I've got a bunch of them written down, but I didn't think it through. But just verses about God's forgiveness and forgiving to the uttermost and things of that nature.
Well, when did you meet your wife, Melissa?
Okay, well, she was in the band, and I was in the band.
In high school?
No,
Okay,
college.
College.
No, she grew up in Springdale.
Okay.
Her parents raised her 40 miles from the nearest known sin. Yeah, she played the flute, and I played the sousaphone.
Mm-hmm.
And so, back then, the big deal was doing these pinwheels in the marching band at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And so the little instruments would be out on the end of it, the axle of it. And she was out of step most of the time. And I was supposedly the squad leader, and so I had to fuss at her a few times. I thought she was absolutely the cutest, prettiest, sweetest thing I'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And but I had, again, kind of like that, I had made a promise, not to anybody, but just sort of, this was a promise to myself that I wasn't going to go off to college and fall in love and marry the first girl I met,
Yeah.
So I decided that I would not have 2 dates in a row with anybody. And I would have a date with Melissa and somebody else, then Melissa and somebody else. But that didn't last too long.
Yeah.
I mean, and so she was, she was, I know that there's not a sinless person, but she was the closest thing to it I'd ever met.
Yeah.
And we really hit it off.
That's awesome. So when you say sinless person, like what was kind of her upbringing a little bit?
Okay. Well, you know that she's Tom Ellis' cousin?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No.
Well, yeah, she is. First cousins.
Okay.
And Tom's mom and Melissa's dad are brother and sister.
Okay.
And so anyway, that she just, she wasn't sinless perfection, but I don't think, I do have a picture of her with a candy cigarette in her mouth. Which, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But she just was a pure living person.
So how long did you guys date before getting married?
Right. Well, we dated, I guess you'd say we dated 3 years.
Okay.
And better part of 3 years. And that last year, we knew that we were supposed to get married. Mm-hmm. And, people do pretty, really dress up the engagement deal. And I guess we didn't know to do that. We'd been to a missions conference in Fort Worth and got back in time for church on Sunday night. And after church, sitting in the car in the church parking lot, I asked her to marry me, and that's how it worked out. And I didn't have a engagement ring or anything.
Yeah.
But then I did get an engagement ring right after that. But,
yeah.
That's the way that worked.
So cool. So basically, y'all get married. You graduate, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
or
Well,
was that after?
no, she graduated before I did,
Okay.
and so she was teaching. We got married in August the 6th, 1966,
Okay.
um, and I had bought a trailer. In fact, this room is about the size of that trailer, except it wasn't as wide as this room.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we lived in that trailer, and in Malvern, Arkansas. Each day, I would go to college. I worked also. I did work study, but she already had her teacher's certificate,
Okay.
and so she taught school in Prattsville, Arkansas. And by the way, it was their first year of desegregation. So it was it was kind of a challenging year,
Mm-hmm.
but she did great. She was, I've got a picture in my office of that class, and so then I graduated at the end of that school year, and we went to Pine Bluff, where I was. They wanted me to be the pastor to start a mission there
Mm-hmm.
in Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Okay. How long after getting married did y'all start having kids?
That's a great question. Well, we wanted to have kids before we had kids,
Yeah.
and so it was looking like we weren't going to be able to have a child,
Mm-hmm.
and we were by then. I was pastor in Renner, Texas,
Okay.
and I was in seminary and so forth, and at Southwestern in Fort Worth. In fact, we had been to Edna Gladney home there. It's a home for children, kind of like OBHC,
Okay.
and to adopt a child. And about that time,
Yeah.
found out she was pregnant.
Wow.
And so, yeah, we had already been to there, and we had scheduled an in-home visit, and we lived in a parsonage there in Renner, and it was a very substandard kind of house.
Yeah.
In fact, we had to go across the street to the church to rinse out. Back then, you had cloth diapers, and had to go over there to rinse the diapers out.
Well, so what were some goals you had for your young family, like with kids, as growing up? What were some goals you had?
Tyler, I'm not sure. I saw that question.
Mm-hmm.
Our basic goal was for them to grow up, be well behaved, become Christians, and do what God wanted them to do.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say we had any more specific goals than that.
Okay.
But Jennifer was our firstborn, and Renner was a town of 175 people, and the biggest thing going in town was our church. And the kids went to Plano to school,
Mm-hmm.
and but so Jennifer everybody loved Jennifer,
Mm-hmm.
And then same way when we went from there to Sparkman when I graduated from seminary, Sparkman, Arkansas. Why, that town I think it had 170 some people, and but everybody was crazy about our daughter.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
that is pretty cool. So you had Jennifer. Tell us a little bit about your other kids.
Okay, So Jennifer was born at Baylor Hospital in Dallas, and then Joel was born in Arkadelphia. I mean, Sparkman, the church, the place where I pastored, was just, I want to say, 22 miles or something from Arkadelphia. And of course, we didn't have a hospital there, but Arkadelphia had a hospital. Although they closed that hospital the next year, I think, after Joel was born. But but so, and with Joel, I went to Tom Elliff wanted me to come and serve with him at Eastwood in Tulsa. And I was there in view of a call. And you kind of keep these things under wraps. And so when they did call us, that's another story. I called Melissa and I said, Sugar, the secretaries of this church are more spiritual than me. I mean, and I just told her I'm not adequate. But the Lord took that inadequacy and did something with it. But anyhow, so the next Sunday, we announced that that we were going to go to Tulsa, and God had done a great work there. We baptized a lot of people, and I know the exact number, but I don't want to tell it. And we were just there for a year and a half, and that's another story. But so we announced we were leaving, but we couldn't leave until Melissa had the baby, and she started having pains that night.
Wow.
And so the next that was on Sunday. Monday is when Joel was born.
Wow, that's cool.
And so then,
God's perfect timing.
Absolutely. Then then Daniel came along. He was born, I think, 5 years later, and that was while we were serving Eastwood there in Tulsa.
Okay. So each of your kids, it says here they're committed Christ followers. Kind of take us through each of their stories. When did they come to know the Lord? And
yeah. Jennifer was a very bright and I'd say spiritually sensitive child.
Yeah.
And so I think she was a second grader, and she was asking questions. I mean, certainly second graders can be saved, but anyhow, and so we came home from church one day, and and so she gave her heart to the Lord there, sitting in our living room. Joel was about 4, probably, at that time, and we had asked him to play outside, and he'd come to the door every night. How come I have to stay outside? And
I've been there before with those.
and so anyway, so after Jennifer got it all settled, we told Joel he could come in. And, how come I had to stay outside? I said, well, your sister just invited Christ into her heart to be her Savior. And he goes, I just did that 3 times out here on the sidewalk. That was a lie.
Yeah.
But okay, so that was Jennifer.
Okay.
And then Joel, he gave his heart to the Lord he might have been a year or so older than Jen. Um, so say 5 years later.
Yeah.
And then Daniel gave his heart to Christ after we came back from the Northwest. And, I pastored out in Washington State, and that was quite a deal. So, and so he got saved then. And then I was preaching a revival down here at Cache, Oklahoma, out from Lawton. And he had come down there. I think Melissa and he came. I'm not just exactly sure about that. But at that revival, he came forward and surrendered to God's plan for his life, which he felt like was going to be the ministry.
That's awesome. Well, so going 3 for 3 with your kids becoming believers, what were some habits you and Melissa did with them growing up? Did y'all have any habits in the home that you guys did?
Yeah. Like I said, we were pretty consistent about family devotions.
Okay.
I say pretty consistent because I'm not going to pretend that we were perfectly consistent. But things happen. You get home 1 o'clock in the morning and that kind of thing. And but we consistently had family devotions, and we pretty much talked about things that were happening and challenges and so forth. And I would say that was just being open and honest about things like that. And when God, I remember when Joel was a teenager. Yeah, because he had his pickup. One night I came in about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd preached way out in western Oklahoma, someplace. And I got back in, and it was when we lived in Eastwood Lake. And Melissa said I insisted that Joel go on to bed because it was getting too late. And anyway, the next morning he was up because he wanted to ask me about something that had to do with girls. And anyhow, I set him straight on that.
We're good.
But my point is, I guess, really, that all 3 kids knew good and well that they could ask us about anything. And so I'm really thankful. Joel was the hardest to discipline of the 3. And he would tell you that he deserved every licking he got. But and the other 2 were just, kids have different dispositions. And so I wasn't one who said, well, all 3 of them, we got to treat them exactly the same. No, we need to treat them how God wants that kid to be treated. So.
Whenever, did you guys, I know you did stuff in the home, but did you mainly rely on, the church to help them grow in their faith once they got saved? Or did you try to implement, little specific plans or, buying them certain things to help them grow? Or...
Yeah.
What were some things y'all did?
Yeah, and especially when they got where they would read on their own, we got them things to help them grow. And I'd have to say that I know has a bad reputation now, which is deserved. But we kind of drank the Kool-Aid as far as Gothard stuff. Do you know what I'm talking about? But
I've heard of it a little bit, but I don't know much about it.
Well, it was Institute of Basic Youth Conflicts. Anyway, yes, we went to those things, and especially Jennifer, she really bought into it.
Mm-hmm.
And you say bought into what? Well, just being real literal about everything that's in the Bible. And anyhow, that I'd have to say that was a part. And I know we were too strict about some things. And I'm not talking about going to church. They love to go to church.
Mm-hmm.
And we never had I don't recall ever having a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
But other things about the choice of friends and so forth, why, it's kind of like, that's kind of where the water meets the wheel.
Yeah. Okay. Let's kind of work through your career over the years. So we talked about getting out of college, went to seminary next, and then just kind of talk about your career over the years and where you went from there.
Okay. Well, it's easy to chart the different places.
Yeah.
In fact, it's been a long time since I started serving Moffat as their pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 2 tenures there. They asked me to come back later on.
Okay.
So it was a different day and time in that churches would have youth revivals. And it turned out that Tom, Elif, and Ruffin Snow, we were a pretty often called upon team to come and do that kind of work. And I'm glad we did. I'm very glad about that.
Yeah.
And then in 1964, I think, no, 65, why Tom had an idea. He had been a summer missionary in the year before, and what then was the most unchurched state in the United States, and that's Vermont. But then Washington became the most unchurched state.
Okay.
But anyway, we had this plan. There were 5 of us, college students, that we would meet. We met every week in the prayer room there at the chapel and talk about and pray about going to Vermont. And we had different churches lined up so that every week of the summer we would be in a church having a youth revival that would start on Sunday morning, go through Friday night, and also that same week do Vacation Bible School. And anyway, did we have a sponsoring organization? No. But Tom had made friends with people up there, and so forth.
Yeah.
Well, about late March, early April, we started getting messages from the churches we were going to in Vermont. And, they had changed pastors and they wouldn't be able to have us that week or this and that, a lot of different reasons, good reasons. But so it came down to we just had 1 week the whole summer.
Wow.
Well, we couldn't go up there for that. I mean, we had all turned down summer jobs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I say all of us, most of us. And so, we were praying, and it was sort of one of those birth of a vision, death of a vision, rebirth of a vision, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And because we really felt like God had given us that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in May of that year, the guy who was the evangelism guy for Arkansas, Jesse Reed, got a phone call from Lewis Steed, who was the evangelism guy for Washington, Oregon, north part of California, and the western four provinces of Canada, asking, saying, I know it's way too late to be asking about this, but would you possibly have a team of college kids that could come up here, have good preaching, and vacation Bible school, et cetera, that's not afraid to work, and so on. Well, that was the answer to our prayer.
Yeah.
And so that's what we ended up doing. So that summer of 1965, actually Melissa was a summer missionary that year in Watts in California, and that was the year of the Watts riots. And we were up in the Northwest. Well, that was a huge thing in our life. We didn't make a penny. I mean, we weren't in it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, and I'd say 3 out of 5 of us were working our way through college, and so, but how God blessed, it was just wonderful, and it was hard work. Well, that changed everything, as far as believing God for great things,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's His initiative, and okay, so even while that last year I was going to school, Melissa was teaching school. Well, there was a little church there in Malvern called Glen Eford Memorial Baptist Church. And so I volunteered to be youth and music and stuff like that. Brother Upchurch was the pastor. And, he was thrilled. It was like a gift, And so that's where I was serving at that time. Well, then the Southside Baptist Church of Pine Bluff got in touch with me for me to they were going to start a mission on the east side of town and asked me to be the pastor for that. Mission start just for the summer. And so we did do that. It's a long story, but I mean, it's a great story. But
Go ahead and tell it.
well, we started
Mm-hmm.
in a tent
Okay.
on the east side of town, and that tent was the most hottest, miserablest. I mean, in June.
Yeah, I can imagine.
In Pine Bluff, Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
and it's you got the paper mill there that stinks all the time, and so of course they think it smells like money, and we had two Sundays. We had a vacation Bible school in that tent, and I'm talking about a big tent.
Mm-hmm.
It had been Bob Harrington's tent, and we were we had 2 Sundays in that thing, and on Thursday of the next week, a big storm came up, and the people that saw it said that storm just picked that tent up and then crushed it down, busted everything, tore it up.
Oh man.
It was just to shreds,
Yeah.
and which was the greatest thing that ever happened. And so the Lord let us get a mobile chapel, which was it was a 60-foot long trailer, but it folded out on both sides
Okay.
and made a good size, and it was air conditioned, everything.
Nice.
Had a little steeple on it, all that cool stuff.
Huh. That's cool.
I mean, it was an eye catcher,
Yeah.
and it sure beat that tent, I'll tell you that.
I'm sure.
So God started blessing that thing, and so they asked us to stay. I was planning on going to seminary that fall, but we stayed instead, and I'm really glad we had that experience. You know, that it was so exciting, frankly. You know, there's a lot of things you could say about it, but and so then the next January we did go to seminary,
Okay.
and we were on our own. I mean, and going in January, it was harder for her to find a teaching position. You know, I mean, she's a accredited teacher and everything. While we were in Pine Bluff, she taught in Plum Bayou school district. And so anyway, that was a wonderful experience. We got to seminary and we didn't have any place to serve, really. And to make a long story short, why we got down to less than $10 to our name. You know, we had that trailer, and I had decided I was going to go to work at because I knew I could get a job or had a job waiting at oh my goodness, the big General Electronics place down there, and that's General Dynamics. They build airplanes. And so I told Melissa, if we don't hear about some opportunity to serve this week, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to. Anyway, that was the plan. The next day, I had left. I had a 1953 pickup GMC that I had left in Pine Bluff and asked a friend of mine to sell it for whatever he could get it. And you know, you didn't have a mosquito problem when you drove that thing down the street. It smoked like crazy.
That's funny.
Anyway, he got $100 for it, and we got that $100 in the mail. Well, that was our little lifeboat, you know.
Yeah.
And so that happened the next day. The next day, they contacted us from First Baptist Church of Renner, Texas, just north of Dallas.
Yeah.
And we were there and in view of a call, and they called us, and that's where I served the rest of my seminary days, starting then. Well, I mean, it was 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, an education in itself. I mean, it was a freestanding church, and what I mean is the only income was what came from the tithes and offerings of the people, and they were at a low ebb, but the Lord just blessed. You know, that was 1970 or 71. That Southern Baptists were having something called the Crusade of the Americas. And it wasn't 70 or 71 when we came there, but it was 70 that's when they had the Crusade of Americas. And the idea was for churches to have a revival one week, and then the next week, the whole association have a revival together. And I know it sounds kind of different, but that was the plan.
Okay.
And I didn't know any better than just follow the plan. And we gave out these Mark New Testaments and so on and so forth. And of all things, that little church in our local revival, we had 11 people, 8 adults and 3 children that got saved and baptized in that deal.
That's
They
awesome.
hadn't had anything like that in many years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to the main thing. I mean, not the main thing, but all the churches together. And that was just 3 nights. Well, and then the next Monday, a lot of that association would have a group meeting. Well, those pastors, a lot of them were saying negative things about, boy, this is the worst thing we ever tried. And I said, no thanks to me, but frankly, it was like glory from heaven for us and for our church. I mean, they hadn't seen 11 people saved and baptized in a long time, and or maybe ever. And so, that kind of gave me a different. It really wasn't the fact that I don't know. I guess I don't know. I don't want to be like those other pastors, and so that was a big deal for us. And so I graduated from seminary at 72 or 3. And, no, it must have been 72. And I went from there to Sparkman, Arkansas. And like I said, I was only there 18 months, and God gloriously blessed. A lot of different things happened there, but we had to get the baptistry fixed because it was a leaky baptistry.
Uh-oh.
And so anyway, that it was just a time. In fact, I'm gonna tell you about one thing that happened there.
Yeah.
We bought a bus.
Okay.
And it cost exactly twice what the one in Pine Bluff or wherever, and in Renner had cost, and it cost $250. So we fixed it up and we ran that bus on Sunday, and the Lord blessed that thing. And so a little girl named, I say little girl, she was a junior high kid, named Beverly Guidry, got saved and baptized. And so Melissa and I went out to her house. For our bus route, we went down in the river bottoms. There was it made a nice loop down through there, and picked up kids and adults if they wanted to come. Well, Beverly lived in one little shabby place down there, and so we went and talked to her about salvation. Boy, she was sharp. She knew what she was doing. Knew Jesus died for her, rose from the grave, etc. And I finished talking to her and praying with her and everything. And anyway, I didn't see it, but see, it was just basically a 2-room house, and with an outhouse out back, and but there was a guy that I had not seen in this other little room, and he appears at the door. He's, Master, about to get choked up.
No,
And he said, "What she did, I want to do that too." I mean, this kid was about 20.
yeah.
And so I said, "Well, come on." His name was Bobby Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really a half sister named Beverly Guidry. And anyway, he repented and he gave his heart to Christ, and I baptized him the next Sunday. When we left Sparkman, the guy, Sparkman was just like 700 and something people, but kids from all over the countryside, came in
Yeah.
to that school system. And
Yeah.
the main guy of the school system, he said, "Ruffin, if you ever want to give an example of somebody whose life was totally changed by Jesus, Bobby Robinson's who you ought to talk about." He said, "He's not the same kid he was." I mean, he had flunked so many times, and like I say, he was 19 or 20, and he was just mean. He was just a mean kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so he, he was just a really converted person. Also, one Sunday I preached about alcohol and made some people mad and so forth. The next Saturday night, I got called at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and oh man, this kid's name has left me. It was another kid.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, a high school senior, and he and 2 other boys were drinking, and these boys from Fordyce, Arkansas, had come over to Sparkman, and they decided they were going to run them out of town, which they did, and they're in a pickup, and he reached up and got his dad's 30-30 off the rack, and he meant to just scare them, he said, but he fired off a shot, went right through a guy's head, splattered him all over the windshield, blew the windshield out, and so forth. And he was in jail for murder.
Mm-hmm.
And but they'd gotten drunk. Okay, there were some people in that church that thought I was out of line for preaching against this. A beer joint had opened right on the county line. It was a dry county, and anyway, so that happened at 3 o'clock in the morning. I went over to Fordyce, visited him in jail, and so that morning I preached again about separation, living a separate life, and not just drinking, but other things too.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, that young fellow, the guy that pulled the trigger, he of course went to penitentiary.
Yeah.
Or to the boys thing, and frankly, he got out of jail in not a long period of time, 5 years or something. But he also got saved, and I used to get mail from him every now and then. I mean, that's been way back then, but
Yeah.
God was kind to me by letting me be around where he was doing a mighty work in people's lives. And so, anyway, that was Parkman.
Yeah.
Then there was, I mean, I better not take much more time about that,
Yeah.
I put on here, I wrote on here, Owen Jones. That's the first person I ever led to the Lord. That was, like I said, my first car was a 53 Studebaker. And I bought it for $175 when I was still 15. And my dad and I worked on it and got it where it didn't smoke up the whole world. And I mean, we put in new rings and inserts, and we worked on the engine itself, put a new head on it. It's just 6-cylinder.
Yeah.
But anyhow, and so that boy, Owen Jones, I'd been taking him to church with me. And, he wasn't a kid. He was sort of a kid that nobody else liked very much. Maybe, but I was taking him home on a Sunday night. And, I mean, I was a high school kid, you understand.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I'm really what I say I am, I better talk to him about getting saved, which I did. And I didn't have a very good method, I basically just told him about me getting saved and such as that. And sitting there in that car, I got to help him pray to receive Christ. And he got baptized about a week later. But he had a dad who was a drunkard, like my dad had been. And he was just a mean guy. And one night he came over to our house. We had moved to 4320 Presley, which was a mile or so away. And Mr. Jones was drunk, and he came looking for Owen at our house. And I went to the door, and I said, well, he's not here. And they started getting real loud and cussing and everything. And I felt my dad come up behind me, and he put his hand on my shoulder and pulled me back. And he got out there with Mr. Jones, and he said, you are drunk, and you're going to get off of my porch and quit bothering my son and your son. I mean, I can't remember all he said, but he just really read a riot act to him and got him. But that was the first kid that I ever personally led to Christ. And I mean, first person. And I'm going to tell you something that when he went forward, because he was so meek and beat down, kind of. I didn't know if he would really go forward, but he did. And when he got baptized, I'm telling you, he could have given me $1,000. It wouldn't be any better than that.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Mr. Kawanabe. Okay, so I got on an airplane in Tulsa. And back then, we'd take a hop to Denver and then hop back on up to Seattle.
Okay.
And anyway, I again had made a promise to the Lord that I would at least give it a shot, And so I barely got on the airplane in time. And I sat down, and there was this Oriental-looking guy next to me, and he was in a tie and everything. I looked, I wouldn't have any kind of dress clothes on. And so I started talking to him, and small talk at first, and then I said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Have you come to a place in your spiritual life where you know for certain if you died, you go to heaven?" He said, "Oh, you must be Christian." And I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "I am a Buddhist." And I said, "Oh, man." And okay, and there was it seemed like a long pause to me.
Yeah.
And he said, "But I have considered Christianity." And so anyway, I said, "Well, what, you have some questions about it or something?" And anyway, he was hungry for Jesus. And I mean, I could have read my notes from Sunday or something, and I think he'd have gotten saved. And I mean, because right there on the plane, why he gave his heart to Christ. Okay, so we landed in Denver, and he was a big shot for Mitsubishi.
Okay.
And like I say, he was in a suit and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd given him my card, and so I went to the bathroom or someplace, and because we had a long layover,
Mm-hmm.
and he was going to Denver. That's where he was going, and I think anyhow. So we passed. I said, "Mr. Kawanami," and my brother. He said, "Come. I called my wife, and she is not angry." I said, "Well, that's good." Anyway, she later on gave her heart. I mean, I corresponded with him some after that. I mean, that was one of those deals where you think, man, I could have missed that totally.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was just wonderful.
Yeah.
And it had nothing to do with me, I mean, it wasn't some kind of clever thing I talked about. Story number 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say his name on this, but
Okay.
that guy.
Yeah, just tell a little bit about him.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you real quick.
Okay.
He came to see me. He was one of the pastors in Washington State.
Okay.
And he was a musician, played the piano real good. There at Washington in Tacoma, our church was like a half mile from the front door of McCord Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. And then adjacent to that was Fort Lewis,
Mm-hmm.
and Army. Anyway, he came to see me, and he had come to see me once before about something, then just left me confused. I wasn't sure what he was asking about. And he came and he said, "I'm going to get kicked out of the Army." And well, it was because he's homosexual.
Mm.
And so he, we talked about that a bit. And, I didn't think he was shooting straight with me.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, I mean, back then they did do that,
Yeah.
that was had to be in 1981 or 82 probably.
Yeah.
And he, okay, so he was going to get kicked out. Well, the guy who, by the way, now is down there in Frisco, Texas. Oh my goodness, I can't think of his name. Anyway, he's a musician. Not this guy, but I mean a real great, good Christian man. And anyway, I had him up there to help me with a revival in Tacoma. And so he and I met with this fellow I'm talking to. He's going to get kicked out. And we talked to him, wasn't anything special really about what the Lord says about that kind of activity, and so on and so forth. And he said, see, because he was the kind of guy that would go to one of these adult, I don't know what you call them, but things, and they just hang out. I mean, I asked him how many partners that he had ever had. He said, oh, I don't know. I said, well, how many? Like 20? 100? He said, it'd be more like 1,000.
Dang.
Sick.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
And anyway, to make a long story short, because it's a really, so my friend from Texas and I were talking to him, and I said to him, because he was claiming he was a Christian, and I said, you know good and well, you're not a Christian. You're not saved. And because, it was all about playing the piano and that kind of stuff for him.
Yeah.
To make he finally, he just kind of fell on the floor, and he was like a worm or something down there. And we were praying for him then praying against the devil and all this kind of thing. It was pretty intense. And finally, he just got worn out. And he said, I'm sick of what I am. And you're right, I'm not saved. And anyway, he gave his heart to Christ. Okay. And he got kicked out. Okay. Fast forward to, I came back to Tulsa. They called me to be the pastor now of Eastwood. And the very first year, the first year I was pastor there, this convention was in Dallas, and I didn't get there in time really to go to that convention. But I went to the convention the next year, and it was in Atlanta. And Melissa and I were walking across this big plaza there, and we hear somebody way yonder, Brother Ruffin. And so I couldn't figure out who it was, and I waved and everything. And a man and a woman started running across that. Anyway, it was this same guy.
Wow.
And he said, I just wanted you to know I'm living for Jesus. He said, I haven't done anything like that anymore. I mean, he was more vivid, but, and his wife says, who had been married a couple of years, I think, by then, and she said, and he's accountable. She said, he calls me when he leaves work, and I know about how long it's supposed to take him to get home. And because I know that he used to go to those joints and all and do that stuff. Anyway, it was one of those deals where it just makes you happy in your heart.
Yeah.
That God has really changed somebody. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway.
That's really cool.
Dan Colacurcio. I wish I'd brought it with me. I didn't though. Okay, we went to Washington. God called us there. We went to. I'm telling you this not to say, "Boy, didn't I do good," but it's the truth that we went to a salary 41% of what our salary had been in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most people could not, would not be able to do it, or they'd have to, or, they wouldn't be able to go to 41% of their income.
Yeah.
And in an economy up there that is half again more expensive. There's some things that people have challenged me to do that have been very helpful to me. And one was to get out of debt. I meant to say something about that earlier.
Yeah, just walk us through that a little bit.
Well, when in 1973, when I went to Eastwood, I thought if somebody was willing to lend you money, you were supposed to borrow it. And so I was pretty highly leveraged, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving a car that I had a couple of years left to pay for, and it was crummy. Things like that. And challenged me to get out of debt. And so when we got to where we could sell that car and rely on the Lord for some transportation, why we did that. Sell it and pay what we owed on it.
Mm-hmm.
So for several years, we drove pretty crummy cars.
Mm-hmm.
But the key to that was that a friend of mine said, but since you enjoy making car payments so much, keep on making them to yourself or to a savings account or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that's what we did. And so by just a few years into that, I said, but then what if the transmission goes out? Well, you didn't know whether the transmission was going to go out on the car you were making payments on. That could have happened.
Yeah.
And so you're paying into this savings account, and so you buy a used transmission or something and find somebody that'll help you put it in, etc. So that's exactly what we did. And we got to where, we haven't had car payments since the 70s.
Wow.
And, both Melissa and I drive cars we really like, and so forth. Okay. If that hadn't happened, though, and also we started on a plan to pay off our house, and anyhow, and so our last two, the house we're in now and the house we were in North Carolina, they're all paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And if that hadn't happened, if we were like we were in Sparkman and Renner, and see, in Renner we didn't, well, in both Sparkman and Renner, the church had a parsonage.
Yeah.
And but if we were still like that, I've been telling you about when we went to Washington State. I wouldn't take anything for that experience of going to Washington, and serving that church. No thanks to me, but that church with only one staff member, you know,
Mm-hmm.
led that Northwest Convention in baptisms.
Wow.
And I mean, like, well over 100 baptisms a year. And of course, it was a turnover population with the military and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's more than one factor in it. But it never had done that before.
Mm-hmm.
And but we would have. There'd been no colocurtios, no in our life, you know.
Yeah.
All of those things. The guy that I told you about that got free from homosexuality and all.
Mm-hmm.
We would have just had to say, we'd love to go, but or we'd love to follow God's leadership, but we can't. It was such an adventure, Tyler. It was okay. So one day, I'm talking on the phone. See, I didn't have a staff or anything,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lord was blessing, and our church was growing, and my main deacon was sitting right here. And I got off the phone, and he said, "Who were you talking to?" And I said, "Well, his first name's Dan. His last name's kind of weird. It's Kola Kukio or something like that." And his eyes get real big, you know. And he said, "Not Colacurcio." That's it. Colacurcio, that's his name. And he said, "Ruffin, that's the family. That's the mafia." And I said, "Well, he's coming. He's going to be here in the morning at 8:00." And so, because he lived up in I can't think of it right now, but an hour away.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had actually gotten a phone call from Tom's brother, Jim Elliff, who at that time was a pastor in Florida. And he had met this guy. The guy's sister had gotten him to come to, they were going to have a Lord's Supper. And, you know, those people, they're all Catholics, you know. And it was just to kind of see how the Baptists do it and everything. And afterwards, Jim had sat in a car, he said, for 2 hours and talked to him about what it really meant to be a Christian. And in other words, and so Jim, he called me. He had already called me that morning and said, "I think he'll be calling you because I think he was sincere and I think he means business." And so, I mean, I didn't get to help him get saved or anything, but and so sure enough, the next morning he was at my office from Kent, Washington.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he was just hungry. You know, he really had given his heart to Christ, and in Jim Elliff's car, and so for months he would come every weekday morning and make the drive down, and I'd give him something to read in there, and then he'd go visiting with me or whatever. And so one day, I mean, early on, why we were talking, and he said something about Kathy. I said, "Now wait a minute." I said, "What you just said sounds like maybe there's a girl living with you and you're not married to her. Is that right?" He said, "Sure." I said, "No. Hey, that's not going to work." I said, "God doesn't go for that." That's exactly what I said. God doesn't go for that. he said, "You're kidding." And I said, "No, I'm not kidding. It's a big deal." And so what you're going to need to do is break it off with her. Um, and so he said, "Can you show me that in the Bible?" And I said, "It's not hard. There's plenty of verses in the Bible." And I opened the Bible and showed him,
Mm-hmm.
and that settled it for him. He didn't spend another night. He called Kathy and said, I can't live with you without being married." And and so his mother and stepfather, Dorothy Longo and Frank Longo, all of their last names end with a vowel,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so he didn't he that, and so later I got to help Kathy get saved. I married him,
Mm-hmm.
and at their wedding, well, several things about their wedding, but at their wedding, his brother Frankie Colacarcio was his best man, and we'd been around one another. I mean, we just sort of became part of their family, you might say,
Mm-hmm.
because Christmas time, Thanksgiving, and because we didn't have any people there, and so usually the best man and the maid of honor signed the certificate.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave it to him to sign, and he just like this. And so I was just kind of teasing. I said, you do know how to write your name?" And he said, "Ruffin, I haven't signed my name to anything for over 20 years. I mean, they don't turn in tax documents or anything, And I said, "Well, I'm not going to make you sign this, but somebody's going to sign it." And he signed it. But okay, so later on, Frankie, Dorothy Longo got saved. Frank Longo got saved. That's a husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so from time to time, Frankie Colacarcio, would come to the service. So I'm finishing the invitation, and I looked up, and here came Frankie down the aisle. And he was really well built. He was really into that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this really, I'd say, $600 sport coat on. And I said to the lady playing the organ, "Play another verse." And I put my hand up on his back. Well, he could feel the sweat through the coat,
Yeah.
And I said, "Frank, are you wanting to give your heart to Christ?" No. Well, anyway, he did. He gave his heart to the Lord. And then his girlfriend was named Diane January, which I'm sure that wasn't her last name, but and she was in Phoenix, and he got saved and baptized, and then he wanted me to call her and talk to her about it, and actually she gave her heart to the Lord too. Before it was all over, 8 of people in that family had gotten saved and gotten out of the business.
Wow.
And which meant some of them had to leave and go someplace else,
Mm-hmm.
They were always asking me about the statute of limitations. But if you if you Google Colacurcio,
Mm-hmm.
what comes up is Seattle crime family.
Wow.
And in fact, I've got a letter from him down at church that, I mean, I'm not talking about just adding church membership to your resume or something. Those people were changed completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so last year I got this letter from Frank thanking me. I mean, that's been, what, 20 years ago or something?
Mm-hmm.
And just being, because his wife, actually, Diane, he married her. And she's written a book, and I had written a thing. I read the book and wrote something nice about it, and stuff. And, but it's pretty phenomenal.
When you went to family dinners and stuff, were you and Melissa worried about it at all?
Oh my.
Ever? Or
Melissa was worried sick about it.
really?
Especially at first.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, and when we were, like, I ended up marrying, doing the service for Frank and Diane too.
Uh-huh.
But I wouldn't do it for Big Frank and his little girlfriend because they weren't Christians.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought in some hired Catholic preacher
Mm-hmm.
to do it, and so on. But yes, Melissa, she was going all over the place. It was a big house,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a big anaconda or something, a live snake that they were playing with and stuff, and out in the garage was I can't think of his name right now, but Warren Colazzo. Warren Colazzo. He was Mr. Phoenix, Mr. Southern California, and Mr. something, bodybuilding. And so he was out there. When she found Joel and Daniel, they were out there because he had stripped down to, taking his shirt off and all, and just to impress everybody, he was doing all these poses and everything. Not exactly Sunday evening after church.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Well, do you want to talk about Joe Clevender's friend?
Oh, okay, yeah. That's a pretty short story.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to first say about another guy named, I don't give his name, but I had shared the gospel with him, and he was kind of hey, give me a break. He said, I'll probably get saved sometime. He said, I'll probably get saved just before I die or something. He said, remember that thief on the cross,
Yeah.
And he actually said those words. Remember that thief on the cross. And okay, so fast forward. And Joe Clevenger was a good deacon there at Eastwood, and he wanted me to go see this guy with him that he was pretty sure was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at what they used to call Oklahoma Osteopathic Hospital, down just west of downtown Tulsa. And so we went down there. Well, the guy was in a coma.
Okay.
And there were 3 or 4 family members there in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And they're crying and stuff. And he's just in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even think of his name right now, but I spoke his name. And I touched his hand. And his eyes opened. And he had been Joe Clevenger's neighbor, and Joe had talked to him about being saved before.
Okay.
And anyway, and so I said, "Are you awake?" He said, "Well, certainly I am." And I said, "Well," and I can't even call his name, but I said, "I want to talk with you about what Joe's talked to you about giving your heart to Christ." He said, "Yeah, I know. I want to do that." And I mean, there was no, it wasn't like I was talking him into it or anything.
Yeah.
He said, I'm wanting to do that." And, tears were trickling down and stuff. And so I helped him pray and give his heart to the Lord. And I mean, the family, they're just slack-jawed,
Mm-hmm.
and because I think most of them are Christians.
Yeah.
And, okay. And so he was lucid for about an hour. And then he slipped back into his coma, and he was dead by the next morning.
Wow.
Okay. This other guy that I'm talking about, it was so close both in time and in distance. I mean, that hospital has a hallway that goes this way and then this way. And Clevenger's friend was over here, and this guy was over here. And I was kind of ramped up about what happened with Joe Clevenger's friend.
Yeah.
And this guy is, I'm struggling to not say his name, but, he had been so, don't forget that thief on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very lucid. And I talked to him. I said, "You remember you said you'd probably get saved before you die?" And all he could say was, "It's too late. It's too late." And he said that about, I'm sure, a dozen times, maybe more than that. And, I said, "Remember the thief on the cross?" "It's too late, preacher. It's too late." In fact, I don't have the ability to prove it, but I don't think I've ever known any. I mean, I've had several people say, "Boy, that thief on the cross, that's the way I'm going. Just live for the devil or just do what I want to and then
Mm-hmm.
get saved right there at the end." I've never known anybody with that kind of assumption get saved. I've just never known it to happen.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, but those two, what a contrast.
Yeah. That is a crazy contrast for sure. Well, so kind of wrapping up your career and stuff, I know you served on the board as a trustee for the Southern Seminary.
Uh-huh.
Just tell us a little bit about that time. You said a little bit about it. It was a bad time in the
Oh, yeah.
Southern Baptist, but
We had people, the rank and file of Southern Baptists were as conservative as ever.
mm-hmm.
And as far as believing the Bible and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But and Southern was probably the worst of the seminaries as far as having unbelieving professors
Mm-hmm.
or saying abortion was okay or having a trial time before you get married where you live together, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I'm not exaggerating.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just a bad time. And I went there in 1990 as to be on the board. You don't choose to be on the board. You have to. The convention elects you to do that. I mean, they find out if you're willing, but and so for some reason, they put me on the faculty. Oh, rats. The faculty trustee something committee. And so there were three of us, and we had to meet with the faculty at each board meeting. And, the ones of us, at first, there were only about 7 or 8 of us that believed the Bible. I mean, and so anyway, we'd meet with these folks, and we had people saying, "You're trying to," he said, "the reason," like the students would meet with us too, and they would say, "The reason we're here at this seminary is because it's liberal. That's why we came to this one." And well, that's pretty terrible. And this one lady who was the head of a particular part of the faculty, she didn't have a neck. She said, "What are you men going to do when there's more trustees on this campus than there are students?" I mean, they were trying to say that we were going to run all the students off. Well, so we had a very tumultuous trustee meeting, and that board is so big, it's 60-something people on the board. And so it takes a long time to get it flushed out, And so, I'm kind of reluctant to tell about this, but okay, so they had this guy, the former president of the seminary before Al Mohler. Well, he was not a force for conservatism at all. And so he got a guy to come called a conflict resolution expert or something like that. And he addressed the board and said, "You men are going to kill this school." He said, "The faculty are scared they're going to lose their jobs. The students are afraid that their degree is not going to mean anything." And somebody else, he said. And I'm just saying what happened, and I don't know. I wasn't even planning to say it or anything. Since my name starts with a S, I'm way back in the back, big room. I held up my hand. I said, "Well, it looks like Mr. Snow wants to say something." So I stood up and I said, "You mentioned the donors." He said, "We're losing donors right and left because you all are trying to tear up the seminary." And I said, you mentioned the donors and the faculty and the students. Isn't there somebody else that we need to worry about? I mean, really?" the owners of this institution, the people of the Southern Baptist Convention. I said, frankly, we're going home to our churches, and they're wanting to know when we're going to get things fixed down here at Louisville. And I shouldn't have said this probably, but I did say it. I said, they're wanting to know when some heads are going to roll. And because we hadn't really fired anybody at all. We didn't have enough budget. We didn't have enough trustees that would. And anyway, this guy came striding back there to where we sit at these desks, and he pointed his finger right at my nose. He said, "You scare me." And Tom Allen, when I was telling him about this, he said, "That's when you should have said, boo." I didn't think of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a confrontational person.
Yeah.
You know, he said, "You scare me." So you don't even realize how hateful what you're saying is. And but ultimately, that current president, seminary president, retired or quit under fire or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And we brought Al Mohler. By some, I've never asked how this happened, but by some quirk, Al Mohler had come. He at that time was the editor of the Georgia Baptist paper, and anyway, he had come and to get just as a, I don't really know how this happened, but and give us something about the history of Southern Seminary. And of course, he did it from a very conservative, Bible-believing way, you know. And he told about how that Crawford's at first there were only 4 teachers at the seminary. It was first formed just before the Civil War. And but then the 5th person came after the war. And well, his name was Crawford Toy. And when Al Mohler told it, I mean, it was like you were right there with, you know, because Crawford Toy was liberal and didn't believe in Adam and Eve and things like that. And so, so they had to dispense with his position. And there's a scene there at the Louisville train station. Crawford Toy is leaving, and I can't think of. I read this guy's book and everything, but anyway, a good guy. And he said, "Oh, Toy," and he put his hand up on his shoulder like this. He said, "I would gladly give this right arm if you could be back to where you were when you believed the Bible." You know, that's pretty stout.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
Anyway, but Crawford Toy went right its way. In fact, a lot of people don't know it, but he tried to talk Lottie Moon out of going back to China. No, that didn't work, thankfully.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the world it was, you know.
Okay.
And when Al Mohler came, he didn't have an easy time of it. Those first couple of years were pretty awful. they had voted. I was vice chairman of the board, and they had voted to, because of the turmoil, to freeze the officers of the board. Just keep the same officers until such time as they could change it. And so, and twice we were called in, just the officers, to, they had, a seminary has to be accredited like a college does. And so we would have to meet with those accreditation people and stuff. But thankfully, we never lost the accreditation, because mainly Al Moeller, but all of us, we were solid on this, that all we were doing was trying to bring the seminary back to its founding document, which is called the Abstract of Principles. And you can't lose your accreditation when you're trying to do what the purpose of the seminary is. So anyhow, I just thank the Lord for people like Dr. Moeller.
I did have one more thing I wanted to cover at least, but I know you run the prayer ministry at our church. My mom actually runs a prayer ministry at her church. But in your mind, what are some key things that makes a successful prayer ministry, like within a church?
Well, one thing that we certainly have is pastoral contribution or appreciation, not just appreciation, but promotion, pastoral promotion. And second thing is an abundance of realization of answered prayer. And that's, in fact, what makes me mad about getting sick these couple of weeks, is that our intercessory prayer council was going to meet 2 weeks ago, and just talk about how that we can make the membership at large more aware of the amazing answers to prayer that we get to see, and so I'd say those two things are, and then of course people who are willing to be accountable. I mean, it's one thing for me to say, I'll pray for you.
Yeah.
But it's another thing for me to have my name right there at 1 o'clock on Thursday, then I'm going to pray for you. And a lot of people don't like that kind of accountability. But I really believe, and we've had some great prayer warriors that have gone to heaven, and they must be replaced. And so I'm talking about people who are on the hour-to-hour prayer times.
Yeah. What, like in your prayer time with the Lord and stuff, do you have like a sheet from like the congregation that they've sent in prayer requests, or is it just people you hear about, or do you pray about issues you...
No, we have a stack. Well, we have 2 stacks. We have a stack of ongoing prayer requests.
Okay.
And that people have made. Some of them are about illnesses, but a lot of them are about lost people. And but then also over here we have the cards that have been turned in. It's surprising. I'm pleased about this, that we're on the upswing as far as the number of cards that are turned in from the people in the pews.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, I go through them every week and go through, of course, I pray for every one of the prayer requests.
Mm-hmm.
But those cards, some of them are out of date, so we need to pull those, which we do.
Mm-hmm.
But then others are more ongoing. And so, yeah, that's how that works.
Okay.
And we try to stay on top of that.
All right. Well, jumping back into the last part of the interview, can you just kind of walk us through what a typical quiet time looks like for
Sure
Ruffin?
Can. Yeah. Along about that same time, well, at Sparkman, Arkansas, in 1972, I thought this was so cool. I mean, it's not cool, but
Yeah.
I asked people to sign up, read the Bible through in 1972,
Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of people did sign up for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of Christians have never read the Bible through, including moi. I had never read the Bible through,
Mm-hmm.
and I was a preacher. And so, but then, well, actually it was Tom. He said, I'm surprised you haven't read the Bible through every year. And I said, well, not only have I not done it every year, I haven't done it any year. And so I don't do it every year,
Mm-hmm.
but most years I do.
Okay.
And I haven't kept careful account, but 30 or 40 times I've read it through, and it never grows old.
Mm-hmm.
And like last year I read it. This year I got this little jobber right there. Last year I just had that book that we sold for $5, and it was Paul David Tripp. But it was just a book by itself, and it had, it was divided 365 sections, and it didn't have the Bible part. You had to do that. But now this year, this is also Paul David Tripp, and I'm using it, but he has between, yeah, okay, so here's at the end of Genesis 47, and this is his commentary on it.
Okay.
And so, and I like that, and I've got several of them like that. And so there's nothing fancy about the way I have a quiet time. I simply read whatever the passage is and read the comment, make some notes, and then pray for the people that we pray for. And okay, so that's a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bible reading and the commentary, that pretty well takes care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But then also Melissa and I, and not everybody can do this, we couldn't do it for years because of the kids. But now, for the last, I'm going to say 20 years, every morning, except the exceptions are when I have to be at somebody's bedside that they're going to have surgery or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the vast majority of mornings, we each have lists of people that we've promised we'll pray for.
Okay.
And if we say we're going to pray for you, that's what happens. We do pray for you.
Mm-hmm.
And because another thing was I caught myself saying, well, I'll pray for you, and then forgetting.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do that, and we talk about it, and Melissa and I, and there's something, I don't know exactly how it looks from heaven,
Mm-hmm.
but I know how it looks at our kitchen table. And it's not a chore.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we love to do. And we mark things off when they happen, or, make notes and so forth. She's got a booklet, and I've got a booklet.
Yeah.
And when we wear those out, we'll get some more.
Mm-hmm.
And have done that. So it's not very fancy.
Over the years, like, did you pray for your family, like, specific times, or just when they come to mind, or in? Like...
No, now that's a good question. We pray for our family, not only our kids, but their kids,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera, et cetera. And we do that every evening.
Okay.
And I don't want to misrepresent that. We pray for them by name,
Mm-hmm.
but every night we don't always pray a lot about this individual and this individual.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that, but it's not a legalistic thing.
Yeah.
And we have one grandson who, I don't want to present this like something that's not. We have a grandson that's not saved yet, and I'm not talking about Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Hunter tickles me. But, people think we're talking about him because I've asked people to pray for him back when nobody could find him,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, but we have a grandson that doesn't, he doesn't want to go to church. And there's some reasons for it, but okay, so, or, we have a granddaughter that's now 25 years old, this is her 26th year. She was born in 2000. Well, she's 25 or so, and she's never spoken a word, never taken a step.
Mm-hmm.
She's about as dependent as any person could be.
Mm-hmm.
She gets excited about, like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she's definitely got a personality.
Yeah.
And all. So, it's not a cookie cutter deal. Not everybody needs the same prayers that everybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'd say about that.
Okay. And then what time of day have you found that quiet time works best for you?
Oh, it's got to be in the morning.
In the morning?
Yeah. And the neat thing about that is, at least for me,
Mm-hmm.
I can always get up a little earlier.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm going to stay up a little later because I'll fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's not one size fits all. The thing that's the same for everybody is the Word of God, and so for me, I usually get up before Melissa does, and but now you think about it, I didn't always do that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it's a big amount of time,
Oh, yeah.
but I'm not going to let a day go by without spending time with the Lord and the Word.
Yep.
So for me, early in the morning is the best.
Okay. Well, I'll ask you the one last question. If you could name one person I should interview next, who would it be?
I'd talk to Tom Elliff.
Okay. We'll have to get him on.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for your time, Ruffin. It was awesome to get to talk to you. So, it was a true pleasure. Thank you for joining us as we heard from today's Disciple of the Faith. We hope you were inspired and challenged by the stories shared and that you feel led to share this episode with someone in your life who could be encouraged by it too. Please like and subscribe to follow along as we introduce you to other disciples of the faith.